1, 2, 3, yeah! This is Amari Purple Talk. Yes. Welcome to episode 69 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination funk soloist. Thank you once again for tuning in. Please leave your comments in the comment section below, and please download on your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And before we start today's show, it's that time once again to announce part 2 of the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe Edition Twitter thread. That's hashtag Prince Twitter thread. And it's been rolling since November 30th. We're rolling all the way to February 18th. And our moderators are still DJ UMB and Edgar Cruz. And if you've been checking it out, I hope you enjoyed it so far. We've gone through 5 of the vault tracks that are included in the Super Deluxe. And we've got 2 more coming up this week. We've got on December 15th, Dr. Mari de Govia. And that's her Twitter on @urban_vanguard. Her contribution will be Witness for the Prosecution, both versions 1 and 2. And on December 17th, we have Anil Dash, and he will be dropping knowledge on Power Fantastic, the live in-studio version. So, by all means, check out these upcoming Twitter threads as well as the previous ones. If you haven't checked mine out, mine was December 10th, and my contribution was Strange Relationship, and all the versions, including the Shep Pettibone remix version. So check me out at richardcole_now, and check it out. And we also have a couple of people in our purple spotlight. We're going to do some belated birthday shout outs. Of course, this is always recorded the day before we broadcast, but we have some belated birthdays. First up is Sheila E. Her birthday was December 12th. And then we've had Morris Day, December 13th. Happy birthday to both. Both are keeping it purple and on the one, and not to mention keeping it cool. So, and both are incredibly funky drummers as well as dynamic performers. So once again, happy belated birthday. Also, Morris has been dropping some serious grooves over the last month or so. The first one dropped about a month ago. And that one is Cooler Than Santa Claus. I bought that single. Haven't had a chance to check out the video yet. So I've seen clips here and there. But yeah, I got to make some time out and check out the whole video. So, but I love that track. Long overdue new music from Morris Day. Also, check out his latest single. And that new joint is called Head Rush. And it's featuring Trinidad James. I've had a chance to listen to it. Haven't really had a chance to do a deep listen, but pretty funky. Got a little bit of Roger flavor minus the talk box, but it's a funky track. Like I said, glad he's still dropping new music, and go check it out. So that's Head Rush and Cooler Than Santa Claus by Morris Day. And. and you can find them on a streaming service near you. And also, as a reminder, you can send a topic suggestion or question by clinking. Don't clink, but click on the link in the show notes below or the link to my Twitter page. And please use the hashtag Amari Purple Talk so your topic idea or question can be considered for a future episode. And with that out of the way, let's get started with today's topic, which was sent in by Marcel, let me get the last name correct, Hammers or Marcel Hammers. But Marcel writes, "Hi Richard, can you do a Purple Talk about the Camille album?" All right, Marcel, thanks for submitting that topic in. And yes, we're going to talk about the Camille album, and for no other reason that it's pretty awesome. It's unreleased, but it's Prince, and it's still awesome. So, and kind of keeping in this sign of the times kind of bliss that we've been in since September 25th, the Camille album is part of that sign of the times legend. It's recording legend. Prince disbanded the Revolution during the recording of the Sign of the Times album. But before it became the Sign of the Times album, Prince was in like this blissful, happy period. He was recording. He was in LA, Sunset Sound, and was probably listening to a lot of Gustav Mahler #3, obviously, as well as a lot of Sly and the Family Stone's Fresh album, and maybe some Stevie's Fulfillingness, or as Eddie Murphy would say, fulfilling it, the good one, that album. But in the sort of grand scheme of things, had this been released, say, instead of Sign of the Times, it would have been interesting to see what type of reception this album would have received. Because here's this, coming off of this sort of trilogy with the Revolution. You had the major success of Purple Rain. You had Around the World in a Day, which basically, that was sort of made for the fans and to kind of put some distance between Purple Rain, because it was just getting so huge and getting into sort of thriller territory where it's that type of success that will just box you in, and for lesser artists pretty much would have crushed them. So you had that. Then you had Parade, which, not came off of a not well-received movie, but the critics love the album. The fans love the album. And, all three in its own right are these artistic statements. And, even then we were sort of used to, Prince not doing the same album twice. Then, yeah, Camille would have been definitely another left field album. A funky left field album, but it still would have been left field. Now, instead of putting the Prince brand, the Prince name on it, would it have gained traction, or would we have heard it and just go, oh, that's Prince, and maybe some momentum would have been built. I don't know. It's hard to say what that album would have done, but given its legendary status as an unreleased album, loosely, because, well, it's safe to say at this point everything on that album has been released, but this sequence of songs, compiled in the way that this album was, I think it's a good set. I mean, it's a good playlist. We can now basically go through, whether it's our streaming services, whether it's our, MP3s or WAV files or however you store your music now, you can make your own Camille album. And, I guess I never was sure if this was the original artwork that, you see if you do like a image search. I do know that I think it was Susanna. I'll have to go back and listen to that podcast again, but she drew some artwork, or Prince drew some artwork for it. And, it's just a simple hand-drawn cover. Not as deep as, say, the Dream Factory cover was, but, it's kind of, it was the 80s. You kind of had that style of art that was prevalent, kind of like mid to late 80s anyway. So it would have worked. It would have worked as a concept for an album cover, I think. But regardless of whatever album cover you would put to it, I think this would work well as a record store day release. I think it would also work if you did a mainstream release to it. Now, when you get into this sort of, posthumous release of a legacy artist, you're going to find some overlap. You're going to find some repetition. If you look at, say, the Beatles, you have their original albums, but then you have, the Red Album and the Blue Album. It's repetition. There's not really a difference in the mix or the arrangement of the songs. It's not like alternate versions. The differences in the mixes are so subtle, but at the end of the day, it's the same songs. They're getting repackaged, or like their Beatles 1, another greatest hits package, and anthologies and things like that. Hendrix, I think within the last 5 or 10 years, there were albums that the fan base were familiar with that was done in the 70s, which, the way they were mixed and overdubbed, they were against Hendrix's initial wishes during his lifetime. But there's a fan base that's the material that they know. That's the mix that they know. And within the last 5 or 10 years, the Hendrix estate, released those albums, in kind of the original packaging, the original mixes in which those songs were compiled in. And that was to please the fan base. Now, mind you, the estate did what they wanted, and maybe closer to what Hendrix might have wanted with some of those same songs. But there's First Rays of the New Rising Sun, which was a guess at what Hendrix's final album would have been. But then you get these things that were, they were songs that were released in the 70s, but they were remixed and overdubbed and, 1, 2, 3, 4 years after the fact. But again, the fan base is familiar with it, and that's the material that they know. So they have both First Rays, which is as close to what Hendrix would have wanted, and then, 10, 15 years later, 20 years later, re-release of these compilations, Cry of Love, and I forget the title of the other one. But, you're going to get that overlap, that repetition. It's inevitable. And, yeah, it pleases the fan base. So the Camille album would work as sort of that kind of mainstream legacy release, that the diehard fans that are fans of that, they want to have that. A physical something on vinyl. Because I know there was some copies of it pressed. One, after Prince's passing, had sold at an auction like a year or two after. So I think it would work as a mainstream release. Or if you didn't want to do that, it would definitely work as a record store day release. And I would love to hear this on vinyl. Just to have this collection of songs on vinyl. I mean, I would get the CD too. But again, as far as any type of digital media, you know, all of the songs are in circulation now. Thanks to the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe set and the Vault tracks, you can put together Crystal Ball now, the 3 album set. You could do the Camille album digitally. But for me, I think the selling point would be the vinyl. I think that would be something that every Prince fan would want to have in their possession, an official vinyl copy. Again, having the CD wouldn't hurt either. It's like, for me, I want to be a completist. So in my row of CDs, yeah, I want the Camille album to sit right there amongst everything that's already out. But for me, I think I would spend more time listening to the vinyl version. And just to hear, the songs. And I mean, these are some fantastic, funky tracks. You starting off with Rebirth of the Flesh. And I remember having that on a bootleg for years. And the quality was pretty crappy, but just straining to listen to it. And it was just like, man, that is just so funky. And the fact that it was a contender for release, it was on Camille. It made the cut for Crystal Ball, but then it got dropped from the cut. It was the lead off track both times, Camille and Crystal Ball. It was the lead off track. But when Crystal Ball got whittled down to Sign of the Times, then that got bumped for whatever reason. And of course, the title track, Sign of the Times, became not only the lead off single, it was the lead off track to the album. And it was just amazing that this was sitting in the vault for so long. Like it turned up as a rehearsal version that was briefly released on the NPG Music Club site. But the original studio version was sitting in that vault. And I mean, that is a testament to why Prince's vault was so legendary. Because, yeah, there's some things that, yes, he did consider unfinished, or wasn't mixed properly, or needed a full mix or an overdub here or there. But there were lots of songs, lots of finished songs that was in the vault as well. And again, listening to Rebirth of the Flesh, even though it's now officially released, it stands as a testament to just how legendary the material in that vault was. And like I said, just the songs, they were recorded close together. You had Rebirth of the Flesh that was recorded on October 28th of 1986 at Sunset Sound. And according to PrinceVault.com, that was recorded a day after recording Fill You Up. I'll get to that in a minute. But it was recorded on the same day as Rock Hard in a Funky Place, and 2 days before Good Love. And I mean, dude was just on a heavy funk groove at this point. Like I said, you had that. The second track was Housequake, good James Brown homage. And this was kind of on that cusp of, depending on where you were living at the time. But, Eric B. and Rakim had just dropped. And that was sort of the dawn of the James Brown sample. You know, you probably had like you had Marley Marl in there, dropping some in there as well. Um, God, it's too many to mention. I mean, Public Enemy, that's another. But you know, kind of again, depending on where you were in the country, you were hearing that in '86, and for the rest of the country, '87, '88. So with Housequake, you know, he was, you know, Prince was on, in not really, he didn't even sample James Brown. He just channeled James Brown. You know, that's Prince produced, written, arranged, and performed by, of course, minus the horns, you know, with Eric Leeds. But, you know, that's some heavy funk, but the rest of it, you know, he was channeling some Sly. And in my Twitter thread discussing the song Strange Relationship, I hinted at the fact that Sly and the Family Stone's Fresh was in heavy rotation. Now, we probably have to get Dwayne Tudhall in at some point and have him break down when the song Make Your Mama Happy was recorded. But for those of you that have the 1998 Crystal Ball sort of collection of different vault tracks, in the liner notes, he explains that Prince explains that Sly's Fresh album was a major influence on that song. And it's got a lot of elements of that. And there's elements of that feel in Ballad of Dorothy Parker for sure. The earlier, or actually not the earlier version, but the album version of Strange Relationship on the actual Sign of the Times album, you know, there's that Sly element. Now, for years I was hearing Stevie, and it could be just a nice little blend, but really that sort of kind of like little airy bounce of the synthesizers, that really didn't debut until You Haven't Done Nothing on Stevie Wonder's Fulfilling This First Finale album. You know, before then, everything was just straight Sly influence. You know, it's just deep bass funk with Stevie, whether it was Living for the City, Superstition, Maybe Your Baby, that kind of thing. That's kind of more, you know, there's a riot going on Sly era, you know, kind of in that vein. But when you get to You Haven't Done Nothing, it's like that kind of, you know, Stevie kind of never left that bounce. He hit like a chord or something, and it gave that little synth bass or synthesizers a little bit more of a lighter bounce to it. And that element you do hear in Strange Relationship. But at the end of the day, that DNA is Sly and the Family Stone. It's Sly Stone all the way with that. But if it comes out that Make Your Mama Happy was recorded kind of around that same period, because the key piece of evidence is that Susanna's on the background vocals on that track. Okay, so according to PrinceVault.com, actually, Make Your Mama Happy was recorded August 8th, 1986 at the Galpin Boulevard home studio in Chanhassen. Okay, so it says it was recorded the day after recording Forever in My Life. So, yeah, so same era, pretty much. But that, you know, that just might be Prince's just go-to album. And Fresh is a favorite of mine, too. It kind of stays in more of a rotation for me. I probably do play that more. Maybe There's a Riot Going On is a close second. For simplicity, I just go to the greatest hits a lot. And then everything else. Maybe Stand is kind of a fourth place Sly and the Family Stone album for me. And then everything before that, it's just a toss up, and it's just based on my mood. But yeah, so I get it. That is a funky album. And some say that's either There's a Riot Going On is his last gasp, or 3 albums later, High on You is the last gasp. But to me, that is an amazing piece of work. Get the CD with the bonus tracks. The bonus tracks are alternate mixes. The story behind that is there are 2 versions of that album that were mixed. And I forget if one was just available in the UK only. The one that we're familiar with, which is the main body of the album, that's the version of mixes that we're familiar with here in the US, or however that was going about. But by all means, get the CD, because even the alternate versions, subtle differences, maybe minus some horn parts here or there, but it is definitely a funky album. All right, so now we're going to move on to Feel You Up, which I first heard that track because it was the B-side to Party Man. And I had like the short, there's the short version of it. And I got the long version of it. I had it as a bootleg on a cassette for a long time. Just maybe 4 or 5 years ago, ran across another Prince fan. It was like selling off his entire collection. But that cat sent me a download of that long version, and that long version has been my very favorite version of Feel You Up until the 1999 Super Deluxe Edition and the original recording of Feel You Up. That is my favorite. It's just heavier. It's funkier. It doesn't have the Camille voice, which isn't a bad thing, but it just adds, the natural voice just adds more of a funkiness or a deepness to the funk in the original version. But again, if I want to listen to the Camille version, for me, hands down, it is the long stroke version of Feel You Up. And then there's, Shockadelica, kind of probably one of my top 10, well, maybe not top, I'll just say maybe top 5 B-sides of Prince. It's kind of a shame that he was being a little bit of a jerk, kind of pinching Jesse Johnson's title, album title for it. And hey, not every album, the title, the song has to match the title, or the title has to match the song, or however you want to do it. And that was Jesse's prerogative to do it. But Prince being Prince was like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And like I said, it's a jerk move, but damn, it's still one of my top 5 favorite B-sides. Sorry, Jesse. You're the boy and everything, but yeah, it's still a funky track, And kind of listening to this, I don't know, I'll make a final statement about what this album should have been in an alternate universe, but just an amazing song. Then you go into Good Love, which is another great track. And with Good Love, I like the Bright Lights Big City version better than I do the 1998 Crystal Ball version. I understand why that version exists. It's probably because this song in particular, the original, I guess you might as well call it the original version, is tied up with a soundtrack. Now you've probably heard in previous episodes of Amari Purple Talk for or a lot of newbies that don't really follow the music industry side of things, that you've heard me speak about the whole Sony master tape licensing transition that will take place starting in 2021. And with that, even though Prince or the Prince estate owns all of the masters, both Warner Brothers material and the stuff that Prince did after he left Warner Brothers, the estate now owns that. But in making deals going forward, originally the estate signed a deal with Universal for the entire Prince catalog, but Warner Brothers said, nope, we signed a deal with Prince in 2014 in exchange for him getting ownership of the master recordings. We have this deal until 2021, and whatever the terms of the deal entailed, definitely the Purple Rain Super Deluxe was part of that, or Purple Rain Remaster was a part of that, and other projects as well. Maybe what we've received as far as the 1999 Super Deluxe and Sign of the Time Super Deluxe. Although if Prince was still alive, if those things were still going to be released, I feel they'd be a lot different than what we have in our possession already. But with that being said, that licensing deal with Warner Brothers, which is going to expire in 2021, means that the estate can license those classic albums like Sign of the Times, 1999, Around the World in a Day, Diamonds and Pearls. All of that can be licensed to Sony. But the movie soundtracks, Purple Rain, Under the Cherry Moon, which is the Parade album, Batman, and Graffiti Bridge, because they sign a different type of deal when you do a movie soundtrack, those rights will stay with Warner Brothers. So when you see a Parade Super Deluxe Edition, that is going to come out through Warner Brothers. Now, if we see a Diamonds and Pearls Super Deluxe Edition, chances are that is going to come out through Sony. So with all of that being said, Good Love, the version that's from the soundtrack of Bright Lights, Big City, that may be a song that may or may not be still licensed to Warner Brothers. And if that's the case, then there has to be some kind of heavy legal negotiation to get that version onto a Camille release, whether it's Record Store Day, whether it's just a mainstream release, or whatever. But that's Good Love in a nutshell. But I enjoy the 1998 Crystal Ball version of it. I mean, I enjoy it, but there's just that when it goes to that part 2 on the original version, again, for me, that's the funky part. That's, the song is funkier because of that part that's on the original version of it. And thanks to the amazing world of streaming services, I finally got to listen to some Gustav Mahler number 3, and I like it. I mean, I've got a Mozart CD that I listen to. I like the works of John Williams, all the soundtracks that he's done, Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones. I love his orchestrations. And I like George Martin's work as well. Claire Fisher, So I like strings and orchestras, and I do like classical music as well. But I don't have a lot, say, in my collection. But when I do listen, I do enjoy listening to it. And hearing Gustav Mahler #3, I enjoy it. And thanks to Prince, it's like that's the beauty of it. I know some of the people involved in the Prince Twitter thread, we were discussing, the merits of jazz. And for me, just as a kid, there was some things, say, in my dad's collection, like, Quincy Jones or something like that. Um, it was not my music. I wanted to hear the Jackson 5. I wanted to hear, Parliament Funkadelic, you know. But to me, it really wasn't until the Madhouse album. And we know even Eric Leeds says it wasn't intended to be a jazz album. Prince knew it wasn't intended to be a jazz album, but, for two, barely 21 musicians, that had grown up together, it's like, huh, okay, jazz may not be half bad because, we got this Madhouse album and it's like, well, we don't know what it is, but we like it. And that kind of opened up the whole field of research then. So, fast forward from 87 to good old 2020, I've managed to play some really good catch up, over those decades. And it's okay. I remember I was in this discussion, I was saying that I used to get pissed at Wynton Marsalis in interviews because he was always dissing Prince and he was always dissing Michael Jackson. But, jazz, sometimes they kind of have that air of it's pop music, it's rubbish, it's not good, but, all music can be cool, and like I said, you just gotta, so it's subjective too, and understanding that, then that's okay. But long story short, Gustav Mahler #3, if you haven't heard it, and if you're listening to Good Love and you're wondering why he's going on about Gustav Mahler #3, go listen to it and check it out. And of course, you've got If I Was Your Girlfriend, big single from Sign of the Times album, little controversial in 1987, but despite the controversy, if you are a Prince fan, it's the one, you're at the concert, all the words, you sing along, and he could just not sing another note, and the audience has got it the rest of the way. Because we know what it means. You just don't take the title and you just think of whatever with it, or you think of something negative out of it. When you realize the origin of that song, you know what it means. And it's, nothing sinister or nothing crazy about it. It's a really damn good song, and it's damn good songwriting on top of that, to come up with a concept like that, to have that sort of feeling and turn that into a song, it's a damn good piece of work. It's good songwriting, and probably lyrically, maybe next to Strange Relationship. Yeah, probably the best damn set of lyrics on that whole particular set of songs. And then, Rock Hard in the Funky Place, damn good play on words for a title, And the beauty of Prince is that, no matter how, and not to say that this was a serious song, but I'd say Prince has this talent and nobody can pull it. Maybe George Clinton can pull it off. And maybe, depending on the song, John Lennon can pull it off. But that sense of humor, it's probably, it's prevalent in a lot of Prince's work, even something serious like Adore. In my Twitter thread on that one, I comment about, it's the humor. Only he could pull that off. It's a serious love song, and again, damn good set of lyrics, just great songwriting. But smack dab in the middle of that song, it's like you could burn up my clothes, smash up my ride, but wait, but maybe not the ride. Just that humor, good, perfect comic timing. You can tell he's definitely picked up something from, not only I would say stand-up comedians, but, the best comedic sitcoms as well. That timing, not everybody has great comedic timing, but somehow he's able to take that even and turn it into an instrument within his music. So this is Camille in a nutshell. It's again a great argument for turning this into a record store release. The more that I've talked about this, the more I want to have this in my hands on vinyl, an official released vinyl. I want a cover and some liner notes. I'll even get the CD too. I'll get the bundle, whatever, but this needs to be released. It needs to be in the hands of Prince fans everywhere, and especially if you're a fan of this era. And it's a completist piece. Again, like I said, we can stream this stuff all day and make a little playlist and it'd be cool, but to be honest, I want that vinyl. Give me the vinyl. I want to drop the needle on it. Hear those little crackle, and then and for the next however long this 30 minutes or however long the album is, I just want to just have that moment. And to me, in an alternate universe, this set of songs should have been George Clinton's Paisley Park debut album. Not the Cinderella Theory, although I do love Airbound. So in another universe, instead of this being the Camille album, if, say, Sign of the Times existed in a whole different sequence of songs, and you took these 8 songs from Camille and you said, George, this is going to be your next album. And again, maybe stick Airbound on there. Oh, stick Tweaking on there too. The 12-inch single version of that. This should have been George Clinton's first Paisley Park album, because with the Sly elements, the James Brown elements, you got the horns. It's got some quirky psychedelic stuff going on the record too. This definitely screams like a Funkadelic album or a P-Funk All-Stars album that should have been, to me. And Prince could have been channeling that. To me, that's the theme of this record, is that this should have been a George Clinton record. But how Exodus is sort of that kind of Parliament Funkadelic album too, but you can kind of sort of see where Prince pinches here and there, where this, it's where Prince was still putting his heavy stamp on to whatever genre that he would attach himself to. And this would have worked. It's got, where you could stick the Sir Nose voice in a lot of the tracks. There's a lot of, there's heavy guitar in places. You could have brought in Michael Hampton, Dwayne Blackbird McKnight. You could have had them jump in on it. horns. It would have been amazing to see what Fred Wesley and Maceo would have been able to do with the horns on this as well. I don't know. I get, George Clinton, yeah, dude, you should do a cover, just cover this album, Maybe we don't need the record store day release. Maybe we don't need a CD release. Let's just get George Clinton and all the P-Funk All-Stars and just have them cover every single song on the Camille album, but make it, put the little P-Funk spin on it. And again, like I say, drop Sir Nose in that, and, get Bootsy in too or something, maybe that's what we need. So I don't know, that Camille, that's the album in a nutshell. Don't even have to call it Camille. Well, I don't know, whatever we want to call it. But what do you think on that? Should Camille be released as like a record store day, just on vinyl? Should we just get like a heavy mainstream release on vinyl and CD, just to kind of keep it in its historical context and for completists? Should we have George Clinton just do a cover of the whole album? Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And Marcel, once again, thanks for the topic suggestion. Let me know what you think about this episode. Also, to everyone else, if you have topic ideas or questions for Amari Purple Talk, please click the links in the show notes below, or hit me up on Twitter at richardco_now. And that is going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. Be sure to check me out next week. And also visit amaricommunications.com. See what my current projects are. Purchase an Amari Purple Talk t-shirt. Get an Amari Purple Talk mug. Get some We Funk t-shirts. All the proceeds will go to keeping Amari Purple Talk running, as well as some future projects that'll be coming up in the new year. So again, thanks for tuning in. Be safe. Take care of one another. Let's leave this planet a little bit better than how we found it. And as always, keep it purple and on the one.